Hi, I'm Lainey Allen. I'm the program coordinator for the Family and Consumer Sciences program here at Johnson County K-State Research and Extension. It's November, and we wanted to provide you guys a video on Indigenous foods. Being November, many people are cooking. From pies and big meals that last for weeks from leftovers, today's Americans have many foods to choose from. This melting pot country has an abundance of recipes and traditions to learn from. Today we're going to step back to the original people of these expansive lands. From the native tribes of the Arctic to South American tribes along the Amazon River, the food systems were vast for these people. From planting and gathering plants to hunting animals, sustainable food was very important. Many plants, insects, and animals that many consider nuisances and pests today were part of the food pyramid for native peoples. In the Midwest, for example, dandelions, milkweed, nettles, and cattail are a few. Traditionally, I've grown up hearing about the three sisters: corn, beans, and squash. They were often a powerful triad grown together by indigenous people. There's also a fourth sister when you add sunflower. The beans fertilize the corn as they climb up the stalks. The sunflowers hold them up against the wind, and squash kept the raccoons and other pests at bay. Today we traditionally think of corn as yellow and big, corn on the cob. Indian corn is traditionally white or sold for its ornamental qualities as colorful. Indian corn is also edible and can be made into flour. Traditionally, corn and more were ground into a meal using a stone or mortar and pestle. There are a few traditional Native American dishes. A few are Pimasan, which is a combination of dried meat such as buffalo or venison combined with dried berries and lard or animal fat to be used and taken on long trips. Succotash is a thick vegetable dish made with hominy and beans. There's also Three Sisters stew, a dish made with corn, bean, and squash. Fried green tomatoes are a traditional Native American dish, sunflower seed cakes, and berry pudding. Today I'm going to be making the Three Sisters stew and some traditional Native American pumpkin fry bread. Let's get started. Alright, to make this soup, it's going to be super easy once you have all your ingredients ready. What you'll do is throw everything into your pot and cook it for 30 to 45 minutes. What you'll need is 6 cups of red skin potatoes, cubed, 2 cups of onion, diced. It was about 1 onion for me. You will need 2 cans, 15 ounce of diced tomatoes, 1 can of no salt added tomato sauce, 1 can, 15 ounce of red kidney beans, and about 15 ounces of black-eyed peas, 1 cup of corn, 4 tablespoons of minced garlic, 1 cup of yellow squash, some barley, and in my case I substituted some farro, and that would be about 1 cup or however much you really want in your soup. And lastly, about a tablespoon and a half of black pepper. So we have a pot of 6 cups of water boiling, and we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. Be very careful because boiling water is hot and can burn you. We will put our onions in, our diced tomatoes, corn, black-eyed peas, red kidney beans, put that garlic in, yellow squash, tomato sauce, your barley, and in my case, some farro, and black pepper. Now, farro would not have been used traditionally, but I did have a hard time finding it in the store. So don't ever be afraid to substitute something in your dish. Give your soup a stir, bring it to a boil. Once it reaches that boil, turn it to low heat and let it simmer for 30 to 45 minutes or until your potatoes are soft. Now we're going to start our fry bread. I've prepared some in advance, testing out the recipe. So for this traditional recipe for a fry bread, I've had to use a couple substitutions. It calls for mesquite flour and hazelnut oil, both of which I couldn't find readily available. You can order them online and you can follow the recipe directly. I'm going to use some substitutions. Instead of a mesquite flour, I'm going to use ground hazelnut flour and I will add mesquite seasoning. And instead of the hazelnut oil, I'm going to use sunflower seed oil, as sunflowers were traditionally used. Hopefully, the taste will still be the same because of the hazelnut flour. So what we're going to do is combine all of our dry ingredients and combine our wet ingredients. Let's start with the dry ingredients. We will put our flours together, 3 cups of unbleached white flour with 1 cup of mesquite flour. In my case, 1 cup of hazelnut flour with mesquite powder, 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. All right, now we're going to mix our dry ingredients. Is that in your way? Okay. I'm going to use a whisk to make sure that I get it thoroughly mixed. Next, we'll combine our wet ingredients. We'll use 1 can of 15 ounces of puree pumpkin, 1/3 cup of honey, 1/2 tablespoon of your oil. I'm going to use sunflower oil. And 3/4 cup warm water. And we'll mix. Now we're going to make a well in our dry ingredients in the flour. So just make a little hole in the middle, or a well. And then we will add our wet ingredients into that hole or well. Now we will mix the wet and dry ingredients together. Your dough will be pretty sticky. If you've used too much water and it's too sticky, add some flour. If it's too dry, you might have to add water. Once all your ingredients are incorporated, make your dough into a ball. Then lightly oil your dough ball. You can use your hands for this, or if you prefer, some people like to use basting brushes, or you can wear gloves. I'm going to flip the dough over to make sure each side is oiled. Then you're going to wrap your dough up into some saran wrap and let it sit for 10 minutes. Alrighty, it has been 10 minutes. We're ready to take the saran wrap off. First, I'm going to flour my surface because we are going to roll some dough. And I will flour my hands as well. Carefully take the plastic wrap off. And that oil has definitely helped keep the plastic wrap from sticking. Now I need a little more flour on my hands. And now we're going to shape 15 balls that we will then make into our fry bread. If they're not all perfect, that's okay. You can always add or take away dough from the balls. Okay. All right, on your floured surface with your floured hands, we are going to make a round from the balls. We want it to be very, very thin, about 1/4 of an inch. That way, when we fry the bread, it will puff up nicely and give us that traditional fry bread. I like flipping mine over a few times, making sure that there is flour evenly distributed. I think this is looking pretty good, pretty flat there. Not a perfect circle, but that is okay. We will gently pick it up and set it aside for when we are ready to fry. Let's keep going. Now we have all of our dough rolled out into our rounds. I've poured about 1/2 inch of corn oil into a heavy pan for frying. My heat is at about medium. Depending on where you're cooking and how your stove heats up, you might have to practice a little bit to get it to fry just right. You're going to carefully lay one of your rounds into the pan to start frying. About 3 minutes on each side is going to give you a nice golden brown color for your fry bread. We are going to flip to the other side. Very carefully, don't splash yourself with oil. We have some nice browning on the edges, and when you see that, usually a good time that you want to flip. So I'm going to flip one more time very carefully. I like to let a little bit of the oil drain off. Take it onto some paper towels or a cooling rack. I have a dish towel underneath just in case so that the oil can drain off. All right, now we have here our pumpkin fry bread and Three Sisters stew. This year, whenever you're cooking for holidays, try using some new recipes you're not used to. They might be untraditional for you, but they are very traditional for Indigenous foods. Thank you.